now.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good to see all of you. Heard that we have a lot of people here from beyond Tennessee, so it's great to see everyone. Hope that you're having a good summer so far and you're doing well. So tonight we'll be talking about games and using them in the workplace to unleash collaboration and creativity. So just to tell you a little bit about my background, I'm the president of Jarrard Consulting LLC, and we have over 20 years of experience playing video games, using gamification in the workplace, working with multi-generational teams, be it that they're face-to-face, virtual, or hybrid, and then delivering projects. And outside of that experience with my company, I've also been a tutor for about 12 years. So I've worked with high school students and then college students nationwide, tutoring statistics, math, writing, economics, and then a whole bunch of other disciplines. And I'm also a national speaker, so I travel the country, or I get to virtually travel the country from my house, talking to awesome groups like this. And then I'm an author. I've got several articles I've published, a book chapter I did a couple of years ago, and then recently I published an article for QMD on generations of work. And some of the hobbies I have outside of work, enjoy doing reading, a lot of writing. Now that the pandemic is winding down a little bit or changing, doing some travel again. So I'll be doing a lot of travel coming up in the next few months. And then playing video games. And I've done that since I was about 3. And then I'm a global community supporter. So I enjoy doing what I can to help other people. And I created 2 college clubs. So the picture you see on the bottom right, that's my club with Warren Buffett about 4.5 years ago. We did a letter campaign. We got to meet him. He was one of the people that inspired us. Then I'm also a volunteer in ASQ, the chair of the Kansas City section, been an IT judge, and then done a whole bunch of other stuff with ASQ. And so looking at games, they've been around pretty much for all of human history. And if we go back to the prehistoric era, you had ancient humans at the time. They would take dinosaur bones or mammoth bones and they'd stack them together and they'd form the game that we know today as dominoes. If we fast forward a little bit to medieval times, kings and queens, and then people in parts of India would play chess. And in modern times, we have games everywhere. They're on your phone. There's actually been a spike in board game sales during the COVID pandemic. I'm sure some of you have heard of the game Pandemic that you can play on your phone or board game. But we've got zombies, we've got Roblox, Minecraft, all kinds of games everywhere. And so if we step back and think about some of the main parts of a game, and this comes from Jane McGonigal, some of her work, there's really 4 parts to it. And the first part is a purpose. So there's some kind of goal that you're pursuing. And it could be a very narrow purpose or a very close-ended goal. So you're trying to get through a mission, or maybe you're trying to just get through some test or certification test. Or you could have more of an open-ended goal. So you're in an open world environment and you've got different types of goals you can kind of pursue at your own pace. The second part of games is players. And so you've got people that play the games, and could be a single player game, so a person playing by themselves in some virtual environment or board game, multiplayer game. So you've got people that can form teams of different sizes from 2 people to perhaps hundreds of people in a shared environment. And with players, you've also got game objects in there. So it could be player versus player, player versus game elements in there that are virtual or AI driven. And the third part is rules. And so in our lives, it's unpredictable what'll happen. We all think that the sun will rise tomorrow. We have an idea of what'll happen in the future, but we're not 100% certain. And so with games, having rules creates a sense of predictability that makes it fascinating for us. So imagine when you're watching football, when a team scores a touchdown, we know what that means. Or if they score a field goal. And we love to watch, especially when it comes down to the wire, where teams are going up against each other. And so having those rules helps make games fun and predictable for people. And then games wouldn't be what they are without mechanics. So the elements that make them fun. So be it if we die in a game, we explode. There's zombies everywhere. There's virtual environments in outer space and in worlds that are in our imagination. And that kind of rounds out the overall part that makes up a game and what it is. And so that brings up another question: why play games? And there's some common reasons why we do it. Games are fun to play. They get us out of our comfort zone, helps us relax or whatnot. They're interactive, so you can play with other people. It could challenge us, especially if you're doing a puzzle game or maybe like a word game. And then there's an element of choice. And so when we play games, we voluntarily choose to do so. And so because of that, we put more time and effort into it than we would compared to other pursuits. And so now we'll have a brief group discussion. I've got a couple of questions here for everyone. And so the first one is, what games have you played? And feel free to take a minute. You can post in the chat some of your responses. I'd say for me, looking back, I've played all kinds of games. I've enjoyed playing Monopoly. I've played Risk. I've played chess for a long time, including with Scouts when I used to be a Scoutmaster at Scout Camp. Grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog games. And today I play a lot of multiplayer games. So some of you might have heard of Call of Duty, obviously Minecraft. I discovered a game recently called Fall Guys. It's pretty interesting. There's some cleaning simulators I've tried, but feel free to post in the chat where some games that you've played. And it could be a board game, it could be a digital game, or maybe it's a game that you invented. Okay, so Arvid, could you look in the chat and see what responses we've got so far?
I'll take it. Ticket to Ride, lots of old board and card games, Monopoly, Rook, poker, board games, Life board game, hand and foot card game, never heard of that one. Euchre, Pokemon, Mahjong, Sonic 1 and 2, Gin, baseball, cards, hearts, football, cards, Monopoly, craps, Risk, solitaire, Uno, a lot of cards.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. So the next question, thinking of all the games you've played, what's your favorite one? If you had to pick one game out of all of them, I'd say for me, probably my favorite board game would be chess. I've been playing it since I was a kid, and I spent several years. I got to help introduce it to some scouts, which was fun. Probably my favorite digital game, and I had someone ask me this recently, I'd say it'd probably be Sonic the Hedgehog 2, just because it was an improvement over the first game, and then there was a whole lot more story to it, a lot more interactive elements. And so feel free, you can take a minute, think about your favorite game that you played.
Checkers, GoldenEye, 64, Pac-Man, Shoots and Ladders. Boy, I haven't heard of that one for a long time. I do remember it though. Pokemon Go, Super Mario Brothers, the original, Euchre and Pokemon, one being card and the other a video. Puzzles.
That's awesome. And then last question for everyone, have you used games in the workplace before? And if you haven't used games at work, maybe if you've used them with your ASQ section, division, maybe a volunteer group, if you've used games before, team building activities, maybe with family or friends. So feel free, take a second, you could jump in. I'd say for myself, while everyone's commenting, On my old health insurance, they had a game on there, and you enter in your weight, your steps that you'd walked, your blood pressure, and you get points for all of it. And at the end of the month, you could put those points toward a gift card. And I was lucky enough, I got enough points to win a couple gift cards. But the intent of that game was really to help me be proactive about my health so I could reduce my number of health insurance claims and then be healthier.
So some of the answers are yes, CSI, and Jeopardy for an annual GMP refresher course. No, yes, trying to remember which ones. Must not have been very impressive. Trivia, team building puzzles, Kahoot, Lean Zombie Hunter.
Huh, I haven't heard of Lean Zombie Hunter. I'll have to look at that.
Let's see, that was Dave Harry. Scottish Highland Games, Lean Production System Practice. Yes, for
that's
team
really cool.
building and knowledge understanding. Pictionary for team building communications. Another Kahoot. Office Olympics.
That's really cool. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. Which will bring me to my next part of my presentation, where I'll briefly talk about a framework for thinking about using games at work. So it sounds like some of us have before or might be new to it. And when you're thinking about using games in the workplace, you always want to start with your business case. And so looking at what you're trying to solve using games. And generally, and this comes from Brian Berkey's work, games are great for helping create new behaviors. So getting people to change the way they act or do something new that they haven't done before. They're really good for skill development. So learning new skills that they could use at work or maybe on their teams or develop as a leader. And then innovation, so testing out new ideas. And that brings up another question: are games appropriate to solve the problem you're looking at? And maybe they're not. If you're trying to get someone to fill out a purchase log for their purchase card, maybe they don't need a highly engaging activity for that, and that's okay. And then think about what resources you have at your disposal. There's some universities, they pursue grants that are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to make custom games. And that's great, and that's an option, but not all of us have those resources at our disposal. Maybe you've got a smaller budget, and that's okay. There's games out there where you don't even need a budget or a lot of resources. But you want to take stock of what you've got, and then that'll help inform the mechanics and what you'll use later on. And there's some other considerations to think about as well. Believe it or not, this sounds really counterintuitive, but games are a serious tool to use at the workplace. When people hear the term gamification, it's very misleading because people think it's all about the game. It's all about engagement, having fun, and that is a part of it. But if you don't use it in an intentional way, you won't get any business value. Like, for instance, we could sit here, we could have all kinds of fun, but not learn anything or not do anything valuable that'll benefit the Tennessee section or ASQ. Think about if you could run a pilot. So get a small group, maybe like a section meeting, for instance, or a team that you have at your workplace, and try out a game. See if it helps solve a problem that you've got, or maybe see if it won't. That'll help you get some immediate feedback and then gradually scale your resources. So instead of committing all this time and money to a game that you might not know will work and could waste all that time and money, you're building it up gradually over time. And then gather data on the game player. So think about who will be playing this game that you've got at work. And you want to bear in mind that today we've got 6 or 7 different generations at the workplace. And in about 10 years or so, we'll have Generation Alpha. So we'll have a whole new generation to add in. But for each of those generations, they're different. And for some of them, they might be more technical than others. You've also got diversity to think about. So socioeconomic status, ethnic backgrounds. And so you want to make a game or use a game scenario that'll be inclusive of all the generations, and then include everyone's background or whatnot. And so after we've defined the business case, then we get into creating a plan and starting to flesh that out. So thinking about how long will it take for you to set up a game? So if you've got a digital game, do you need a server? So a virtual space where everyone can connect. Do you need game licenses to put on a computer? If you've got a board game that you're using or something face-to-face, thinking about getting an event space, and then the board games you've got, maybe getting some snacks or lunch for everyone. If you've got a really big custom game that you're developing, maybe you need to hire a company to do that. And then further clarify the desired future state you've got. So you start out with a problem. So you're trying to engage people, maybe develop some kind of new skill or get some innovation for new product and service development. Think about where you want to be. So after you have the game out there, you've deployed it, what does success look like? And then also think about how you measure success. So will you have people do a survey before and after? Will you have an IT component where you can track what people do in the game? Will you have people reflect on the experience? Those are all options, but again, they vary based on how you structure the game experience. And then there's game mechanics. And so those are the tools for making games engaging. And it depends again on your players. So think about the generations you've got that you're trying to engage and motivate, and then their backgrounds, but then also what motivates them. And people can often have different motivations for playing games. Some people want to win. There's some people that want to collaborate. They just want to be on a team. They don't really mind if they win or not. Some people play for revenge. They want to get back at someone. And often when I'm playing online, there's people that play so they can try to break the game. They can get outside of the game boundary to get somewhere where no one's been. And I've done this before through some stuff I've discovered over time. But you want to bear in mind that people bring all those different motivations to the table. And some example of game mechanics, digital badges. And so I've got the picture on the top right there. They look very similar to Boy Scout badges. And you might think to yourself, it's kind of quirky. Like, why would people want to pursue a digital badge? And I'll give you a real example just to prove the point. So there was a company in the Kansas City area called Cerner. They're a global healthcare IT company getting acquired by Oracle. And before COVID, they'd have associates travel all over the world to different hospitals and whatnot to address their technology needs. And Cerner had a problem. When associates would travel, and I'm sure some of you can relate to this, they would use their rewards cards because they wanted to get that free flight or free hotel stay. And so associates would stay at hotels or get flights at places that didn't match the pre-negotiated company flights and hotels. And so the CIO, they spent $10,000. They created a pilot game for people to play, and it was a dashboard. And so you go into this dashboard, you put in your travel information, and if you comply with the Cerner policy, you would get a digital badge. And it literally looked like it was for Mario. It was like the star in the middle of the screen. And so they did this for a while. And again, remember, they spent $10,000 on this pilot. So after a year of doing this, they saved over $2.1 million off their bottom line. And they saw compliance soar with their travel policy because people wanted that digital badge. They wanted that star that looked like it was for Mario. And I just thought that was incredible. And that's one example to highlight the power of games and game mechanics. You've also got monsters you could put in, or think about how you structure the world environment, if it's an open world game, a closed world game. And you want to bear in mind that you want to have mechanics that are appropriate to the outcomes you're trying to get. So for example, if I'm trying to get you to follow a policy related to inspection or fill out some document, maybe getting chased by a dragon won't encourage you to do that. Maybe I'll scare you and the opposite will happen. And so you want to keep that in mind, keeping the mechanics appropriate to the outcome you're trying to get. And so after we've created our plan, we've fleshed out the game mechanics we're using, then we'll put the game out there for people to play. So we'll deploy it. And we'll go back to the business case. And as people are playing the game and we're measuring it, we'll look at we'll see, did the game solve the original problem we have? And we'll see if we're achieving our future state. And then you want to look at how people are playing the game. And so as we're going through thinking about the game design or game experience that we're creating, we want to see if people are actually following that, or if maybe they're doing something different. Maybe there's other ways or other benefits you get from the game, or maybe people are not playing it the way you intended. And that leads into the third point, to see what feedback people are saying. So what they like about the game, what they do not like, what they'd recommend to do to improve the game in the future. And then looking a little bit further ahead, so you've got your game out there for a while, people are playing it. You want to go back to if the organization should continue to use it. So is the game still delivering some kind of business value, or should you discontinue it? And then as people are providing even more feedback, think about what new mechanics or features could be added to get more value out of the game or to get people to play it more. And then bear in mind how the organization will monitor the game. And so you want to have some kind of game facilitator to help continue the game. If you got technology component, IT might need to be involved, some information technology, your operations team probably need management commitment, and all of that goes into monitoring and sustaining the game for a longer period. And so now that we've talked about using games at work, I'll present some that I found that are good for team building and skill development. So we'll start with team building first, and a couple team building games just to provide for everyone. One of them, so I discovered this a couple weeks ago, it's called Junkyard Carts. And so you get a bin and you put PVC pipe in it, some wheels, you get some chairs, put them in a room, and you split people up into groups of about 3 to 5, and you have them make a go-kart. So they get a chair or these PVC pipes, and they run through a set of cones in a room, and you have them see which one goes the fastest. And then you look at how the team work together, their creativity, maybe have them do a small pitch as if they're on a Shark Tank. I played this a couple of weeks ago. It was a lot of fun. And as you're playing this game, you're inspecting the design that's being built. You're looking at the quality of it throughout. With the team that I had, we had an hour to build this design. We spent 50 minutes just trying to get the cart to work, and then the last 10 on marketing and all the other stuff. So that's one game. Another one's Minefield, and that's where, now this is if you're in an office setting, you could also do this in a virtual setting, but you get some rope or whatnot and kind of fence off a small area, and then you get small office items and place them on the ground, and you get a team member, you blindfold them, and then you have another person that's trying to get this person through the minefield, so they're talking to them. And so from playing Minefield, you could develop trust and credibility and hope that your teammate won't get you into mine or something. And it's recommended when you play this game, you don't want to use real mines. I'm sure that gets into workplace liability and a whole bunch of stuff that we don't want to do that's not fun. And then there's also a game show. And so someone had mentioned that earlier, that they've used a game show at their company. You could do Family Feud or Jeopardy. They're a fun way to engage people and then just get them thinking about maybe questions or whatnot that they might not normally think about in the workplace. And there's several benefits for teams from using team building games in the workplace. The first one, they're a great icebreaker. You can learn more about your coworkers. And so to give a quick example, another game that falls into this is Scavenger Hunt. And so that's where you ask people about various items or whatnot. And I played this over Zoom. I was with some coworkers and I was sitting in a different part of my house and I had this plant behind me. And so they saw it and they were like, "Oh, you've got a plant behind you." And I'm like, "Yep, I've got a 50-year-old plant in my house. My mom's had that since she was really little. It was my grandmother's plant. And over time, it got to be really big. And so we spread out across the house and that's part of it." And they were like, "Oh, that's really cool." But if we hadn't played that game and if they hadn't seen the plant behind me, they wouldn't have known that about me. And so they learned more about me as a result of that. Games can help get teams to the performing stage quickly. So if we think about the stages of team development, you've got forming, storming, norming, and performing. And so games can help you get from forming to performing much faster. And then you build trust and credibility. So if your coworker can get you through a minefield, if they can help you slay a dragon in a game, you'll have the sense that they'll have your back at work or on a project that you're on. And looking at some games for skill development, there's one that I was reading about recently called Paper Tower. And that's where you get teams, you split them up into about 3 to 5 people, get a piece of paper and then about 10 paper clips, and you try to make the tallest tower with those materials. Got about 15 minutes to do it. And then after that, everyone shares their tower and they all reflect on the experience. And so as you play this game, you're collaborating together, you're being creative. So you're looking at unique designs you could develop, but you're also thinking about how you could build quality into the design. So when everyone sees the design and inspects it, it's the best design possible and it's as durable as possible. There's also a game called Plane Crash, and that's where you pretend like you're on a plane that's crashed and you've got so many materials you could get. And playing this game, so looking at the set of materials you can get, like a flashlight, food, maybe a TV, but I doubt there's electricity if the plane's crashed. Helps you think about your priorities. So what items do you need to survive? And then being creative. So thinking about creative ways to use those items to hopefully get back home. And then there's a digital game on here, Minecraft, and came out in 2009, acquired by Microsoft in 2014. And there's over 100 million people that play this across the world, kids to adults. And it's basically digital Legos. So a lot of us grew up with block games, you put blocks together and build stuff. You can do the same with Lego sets. You can build all kinds of stuff. So imagine basically a digital Lego set that is massive. And there's a lot of benefits from staff or for staff from playing skill development games. When you play games, since they're fun, you put more time and energy into them than you originally intend to. And so because of that, you learn a broad range of skills in a really short period of time. And a lot of those transfer to real life. And some of those include communication, collaboration, creativity, potentially getting to meet people from all over the world. So getting exposure to diversity and so on. You can also recruit and retain young employees by using games or team building activities or skill development. So if we look at millennials and Generation Z and now Generation Alpha, those are 3 generations that have spent their whole lives growing up with these highly interactive games. Now, you don't necessarily have to gamify everything or use games for every scenario, but trying to use them in areas where it makes sense, doing a team building activity, maybe finding ways to engage young customers. Those generations appreciate that, and they're more likely to stay and grow at your organization if you pursue that. And then you can develop future leaders. And so doing team-based activities where you empower people to be leaders, it gives people an opportunity that aren't normally a leader to be able to shine and then prepare so that way in the future they can be a successful manager or C-suite individual. And so now I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into an example that I did with Minecraft. And so this was with a group of my associates in the Kansas City area about a year or so ago. And because of COVID, they'd all been working more than they had pre-pandemic, and they wanted to reconnect and then build a city together and have some fun. And so I helped structure an activity around that. And this is a pre-event picture. And so you can see this is an open field in Minecraft. There's sheep, pigs, mushrooms, they're really big. You've got all kinds of trees. And yes, if you're wondering, on the right side, there is a house right there. So with my past work experience before I have my business, I helped develop the innovative graduate class with Minecraft where students would learn about cities and then build a city in the game. And as far as I know, that's the only kind of its class in the country and potentially the world currently. And one of the people that took that class was my mom. She was doing a graduate degree, took it as an elective, had a lot of fun, learned how to play Minecraft. And so I told her, I said, I'm doing this pilot activity. You could come if you want. We're gonna be playing Minecraft. And so she jumped all over it and she got in our game server. And what she did what she did in the class. She started building a giant house with a swimming pool and pet llamas, pet cats, paintings in her house. And so I came in and I said, Mom, you built this house. I've got to have like a pre and a post event picture to show people like you. And I'm going to need you to tear the house down. And my mom looked and was like, you're not going to tear my house down, are you? And I thought about it and I was like, I don't want to be the son that tells their mom to tear a house down. And so I left it there. But just kind of a funny side story. And it shows if my parents could learn how to play the game, there's other people across the world that can too. And so after having some fun, doing a mix of presentation and then playing Minecraft, this was the outcome. So they built a city together, going left to right. So there's a city hall right there. We didn't get to finish it because we all had to go do real adult stuff. So we had to leave after a little bit, but we've got a city square there, food pantry, flower shop. We had one participant that was really passionate about trains. So they built a train station and they've got a rail line that goes way off to the left. We've got a tree house. There's a volunteer fire station, a bakery, and then one person built their house, similar to how it is in real life. And they have a business at home. So the second floor is their home office. And overall, everyone had a lot of fun. They learned how to navigate the game. So as a part of these activities that I offer, I help people go through the steps to download the game, be able to get into the server, and then provide demonstrations. So I built a small house to help everyone get familiar with the game. But there were also a lot of skills that were developed, and a couple I highlight in an article I wrote include communication, collaboration, analytical thinking, and so much more. And this was all done virtually. So we all did this from our house. They were all over the Kansas City area. So now that we've explored using games in the workplace, and then we've talked about a couple games for team building and skill development, and then dived a little bit deeper into Minecraft, now we're going to do another activity. And so as you think about your workplace or maybe volunteer area, or even ASQ, your section or division, think about a team that you've got and a problem you have. And I could tell you, I always run into problems. And so if you have no problems going on, that's awesome. I'd be kind of shocked. But think about some kind of problem that you run into, and you could post this in the chat if you want, or work on this individually. But develop a business case. So think about a problem you're trying to solve, how games could help that. So pick out a game or brainstorm a game that you could develop or use. You don't have to spend any money if you don't want to. And then decide how you're going to deploy it and then keep it going. So what are those longer term plans? And some questions to think about as you're going through this. What problem are you trying to solve? What mechanics will maximize the engagement? And then how are you going to monitor and sustain or grow the game you've got over time? And to give one example while everyone's thinking about this, one problem that communities have is engaging the next generation in key conversations about the future of public spaces. And so Microsoft partnered with the Block by Block Foundation and UN Habitat to help empower kids that are all over the world to reimagine their outdoor spaces using Minecraft. And so this past May, WCQI was in Anaheim, and the city of Anaheim did one of these projects in 2017. They received a grant from the Block by Block Foundation, and they brought in computers. Kids got to help redesign a park there called Anaheim Coves. And once they built the design in Minecraft, the city worked with the engineering firm, and the engineering firm actually built the park. And so I got to go see it. I was supposed to see it 2 years ago, but COVID stopped all of it. But I was so excited. If all of you were there, you probably would have been scared. You would have been like, why is a 20-something-year-old on a kid's slide or whatnot? But it was really fun. And that's one example of a park. And just walking around it, you could see how it was kid-friendly. They had a dinosaur theme. They had a playground that was based on a tree house. They had rocks they could climb on. They had a weight set that was for older kids or people who wanted to work out. They had a nice paved road so you could get into it very easily. And that's just one example of one of these projects. So that was in Anaheim, but these projects have also happened in Kosovo, Johannesburg, other parts of Europe, Mumbai, India, all over the world. And it just shows, you know, the infinite possibilities that could happen with games. Could you look in the chat? Have we had any comments at all about the activity or questions?
There's one person listed a problem that we could work on.
Okay.
And that is that very few members of our local section use my ASQ. That is the website that's specifically for members where you can link to your section and so on.
That's very interesting. That's a problem that I have too as a chair. I'm always trying to emphasize how we could use MySQ. So let's start there. So the problem we have is that we're trying to figure out how to get our members to use our intranet. So MySQ, you know, a game that we had talked about with our section was perhaps doing a scavenger hunt or maybe bingo. So having members go in and go into different parts, like they'd get to check off a spot if they had downloaded a file or if they had participated in a discussion post. Something we've tried to do as a section to drive engagement is to do a monthly spotlight post. So take one person from our section and highlight them, and then you know, have them talk about their involvement with the ASQ, their professional experience, hobbies they have, just so we could all try to get to know each other better. And we've had mixed results from it. We're still testing it out throughout the rest of the year. But you know, I'd say like using discussion threads. Something we've tried to get better about as a section is, and I think someone told me this at the World Conference, that to do an announcement in my ASQ before an event happens, and then post it on the calendar spot so people can see it after the event. So after an event like this, do a follow-up discussion and then post the files or recordings in my ASQ. So there's a constant cycle going on for events. We've also tried other discussions. And so a part of how we're evaluated is based on high quality discussions or stuff related to quality. But, you know, in my head, I always think that sometimes it's okay to not do that. Like if you want to just ask people, you know, what they're doing for a holiday, or post something interesting. Like I saw this week that the shoe company Nike, they closed for the whole week. So they have a wellness week going on right now. And I'll be making a MySQ post about that. But trying to think of creative posts just beyond what you see in the general ASQ and quality content. That's a tool I've tried to leverage to drive engagement. And then, you know, at our board meetings, we're always talking about it. What can we post this month? What can we say about this event? What's something fun we could put out there? So yeah, I think that's a great problem. And, you know, if anyone else has any thoughts, if you have stuff you've tried to do, love to hear that too. So does anyone else have any other problems they'd like to look at, see how games could help?
I did like your suggestion to not use live minds. You evidently took a course in risk management recently. That's a joke.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed it as
funny.
well.
Very funny. Yep. You know, I've played some games where I've stepped on mines, and yeah, I gotta go back to the loading point. No, actually I had posted an article recently about you know, using games for Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So with breakout rooms, you can split people up into groups and have them brainstorm stuff or come back together. You know, another example of a problem I was looking at with one of my clients I worked with, they're a nonprofit that does landscape architecture, and they were trying to engage Generation Z, so kids in high school and college right now. And so we piloted doing a design competition that was virtual. So we had a school from Miami, Washington, DC, and New York City. They all came together in a virtual Minecraft space, and they reimagined some of their local parks in the game. And we gave them a set of criteria that their parks to be evaluated on, made sure they all had game access, and we had a lot of fun. We structured it since it was a pilot, so that way everyone could get a prize. And all the students loved it. They wanted to do it again. And this summer we did some design camps nationwide. We had one in San Francisco and then one in Washington, DC. And what I found is that working with games and games like Minecraft, that just as kids have fun, adults can have fun too. And that's a question I've really thought about a lot. Like with ASQ, this might be a question for everyone to think about. What could we all do to make it more fun? Like Duke had talked about driving engagement to my ASQ, but why not have some fun being members? If you think about it, we all do really cool stuff. I've met people, Duke works with people from all over the world. I've been to all these conferences. I've met awesome people like you. I've gotten certified. And why not have fun part of the time, or even at our workplace? Now, it doesn't mean you have fun all the time. There's some times where stuff doesn't go the way you want to, or maybe there's a conflict, but if you can make it enjoyable, especially with some of the research I found about the workplace, people that are happy at work, they have fun, they're more likely to stay, they're more productive when they're there, and then they want to come back. They're excited about work. And that's something I found that's fascinating. Duke, do we have more comments in the chat?
Hang on a sec. What would be a good game to encourage people to fill out their forms correctly and fully? Orientation for new hires tends to be ineffective.
Orientation for new hires. You could make a scavenger hunt, like almost like one of those treasure maps that you see when you're going to get treasure or whatnot. You can make like a treasure map for new employees. Like they fill out their paperwork, they go to orientation, they go to this, and if they complete it, maybe they get entered to be in a raffle. They could get maybe like a company branded cup or something small.
Yeah, so instead of putting the swag on their desk, put it at different locations.
You could give them a digital badge, like I'm onboarded, and put like a star on it or something. That'd be kind of cool. I've heard of colleges that have tried to do that too with freshman students. They'll have them, give them like a map and then have them do activities. So they could be familiar with campus and then be ready to go for classes. So yeah, that's a great problem. I think I've heard of some other companies that face that too.
At some of the conferences, this is Dave Harry, we've used with the Lean Enterprise Division bingo cards. And so what you do is you got a 5x5 grid, and it said, find somebody from Italy, find somebody that is a black belt, find a master black belt, find an ASQ fellow, find somebody that this is their first year in ASQ, find somebody who's an industrial engineer. And so they got to get their signatures on the card, and then they turn the cards in, and then they have a drawing for the cards that are completed. And so it gets people to mingle and chat with each other and say, are you master black belt? Are you green belt? Are you this? And so it's like speed dating with bingo cards. So that's one of the ideas that we've done.
That's a great idea. And I actually saw that at the World Conference too. They have bingo cards, sort of what you described. And actually in the exhibit hall. So I got to go to the Six Sigma division table, and they had a card game you'd play. And they'd mix up the cards and you'd have to guess like what suit you'd get. And I saw that they got a lot of engagement from that.
Yeah. And the other one I put in the thing, I gave you the zombie hunter in there. There's a link in there for that one. That's actually a more Steam game. And it's, they sell it but it's pretty good. I played it multiple times. But the other one is Rattlesnake Hunt, and that's by I know they play it at Kohler. So Kohler's a huge company, and they make a lot of things all over the world. But my friend Mark Preston, he's the lean sensei, or excuse me, the Southern Sensei, but he does a thing called Rattlesnake Hunt, and he does 5S training for 45 minutes, and then they go out on a rattlesnake hunt on the plant floor. And rattlesnakes, they can bite you, they can hiss at you, they can snap at you, they can do a lot of things. So the whole idea is you go out there with tags, little 2-part tags, and you tag the rattlesnake, like a trip cord that you're going to trip on, or a faucet that's dripping, or anything that's a 5S thing, and you tag it, and then you take the other part of the card back. So think of a little hang tag. You take that back, and they print out the picture, put it on the wall, and then they have, I think, 2 days to go kill the rattlesnakes. So they get this huge board with pictures of these cards and the trip hazard or the hazard on it. And then they have to go out and kill the rattlesnake, and then take a picture of the fixed thing, which is the dead rattlesnake, and post it up on the board. So it's very, very visual, and it gets people looking for 5S problems, and it's a game, and it's all about rattlesnake hunting. So I gave you the link in there with the directions from 2014. And of course, over the last 7 years or 8 years, the game has matured, and it's really, really powerful. So they do that regularly at Kohler and all their plants in Mexico and other places. And the employees are just really into competitive looking for rattlesnakes and killing rattlesnakes. And they wear shirts that, say they're the king snake hunter, and there's all kinds of bragging rights for teams and stuff like that. So it's a big deal.
That's really cool. So not only is it a game they're using, but they've integrated it into their culture. And then it's also a good simulation. So quote unquote, killing rattlesnakes is practicing what they'd have to do solving real factory problems. That was excellent. I really appreciate that you shared that.
Right, these safety hazards will bite you, and that's the thing about rattlesnakes. You may not see them; they may be lying behind a rock, and then all of a sudden you trip on something, or something slices your arm, or almost puts your eye out. And so those are the rattlesnakes you got to go after.
Interesting. Well, thank you everyone for jumping in.
There was a question earlier about escape rooms. What about escape rooms? Is that a game?
That's a good question. So there are in-person escape rooms, and the goal is you've got some kind of starting point, and you work as a team to get through various rooms up until the end. There's some movies out about it. There are horror movies. That's not necessarily what real escape rooms are. But there's also virtual escape rooms that I've heard of, where you go on some kind of web browser or website and work with a team to navigate through an escape room. So yes, that's an option. Probably better for the team building side than the skill development. So hopefully that answered the question. For the sake of time, I'm going to continue, and then we'll have a couple minutes at the end for questions. So these are some additional questions. For the sake of time, we won't go through all of them as a group, but just thinking about the game or problem you're looking at, the problem you decide to solve, how you motivate people to get them to play your game. What do people need to know? So what instructions do they need to be able to play the game that you had selected? Did you pick a digital game, so where there's a technology component, or did you pick a board game, something that's non-digital? Thinking about the cost to get the game. So if you've got to get game licenses, a virtual space for everyone, maybe a board game or snacks or whatnot as a part of an in-person experience. How will you measure success? And then gather feedback and monitor the game while you're playing it and post-deployment. So some lessons that I've learned from my time playing games and then using them in the workplace. Business case is super important. So you want to make sure you've got your problem fleshed out and you understand why you're using games, why it's a problem, and then what you're trying to solve. And then bear in mind that games do not solve all problems. There's situations where a game might not be appropriate. You might not be trying to motivate and engage people, and that's okay. And then pilot programs are helpful. And so when you're thinking about games, try it out with a classroom, or maybe a work team in a manufacturing plant, or maybe at one of your section meetings, and see how it goes. Gather some feedback from people, and then if it works, you can gradually scale over time. So not only are you building a case for it, you've got a story of success, but then you're building the case for scaling the game across the organization, for getting more resources. And then looking at sustaining games, it's important to listen to the feedback you get from your players. They'll share stuff about what's going well, what's not, and it provides a great opportunity to be agile. So look at how you can adjust the game experience to get people to continue to play it. And then bear in mind that it takes a team to keep a game going. For some games that are really technical, game facilitator might be a part of that team. If you've got technology, probably an information technology person, probably someone from management or a team member or team leader. But keep that in mind that oftentimes it's more than just the technology that keeps the game going. You want to have a holistic approach to keep your game going. And then what makes games unique today, and why the term gamification is relevant, is because of the fact we've got technology that allows us to scale that game experience. So in the past, you might have a skill development game, and maybe it's with 1 or 2 teams in an organization. Well, with advances in technology over time, and then greater complexity with games. So in the past, you had games like Pong or Galactica, and those were good, but there's a lower level of skill required for that versus playing Minecraft or some other online multiplayer game. You can scale the business benefit with technology. So you get that broader change in behavior, skill development, or new ideas, new product development, new service development across an organization, or potentially across the world, depending on how big you want to scale your game. Some additional resources I found that are helpful, and I'm happy to share the links for all of these. Brian Berkey's, I had a chance to talk to him 4 years ago. His book, Gamify, he's done a lot of work with companies using gamification. Jane McGonigal, she's got a book called Reality's Broken. Provides some good context for why games are relevant today, and insights into virtual games, how people interact in them. There's an article I wrote called Reflection on Team Building, pilot using Minecraft. I have it on LinkedIn, so happy to share that. Some web resources. So I mentioned earlier with Minecraft, it has a really big player base, and Microsoft developed the Education Edition for K-12 groups and then higher education. I think now they've opened it up to esports or nonprofit groups, but there are teachers that have been certified in this. So myself being one of them, I was certified in Education Edition, and they developed lesson plans for this, and they're from all over the world. And when I was at the World Conference, I was telling some people at ASQ, it'd be really cool if they added a section on quality or Six Sigma, because those are just as important as other disciplines. I think it'd be super cool if they add that to their website. So if you like going to conferences or events throughout the year, there's the Serious Play Conference. Normally happens in Orlando, but they have a ton of game resources on their website. And their conference is all about using games. So games in instructional design, government, nonprofit, education, businesses, pretty much you name it, they've got it there. And then there's this PDF article by Huang and Soman. It's on using games in education. This was one of the sources that I had in the book chapter I co-authored, and I just thought it was a really good article and resource on using games. And then this is my contact information. So happy to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. I've got my email right there, my website. I am hireable. So if you want to talk about using games in your section, division, or at an organization, happy to do a follow-up call after this. And then with that being said, just want to thank everyone tonight for coming. Again, hope that you're doing well, and hopefully you found this session to be helpful. Wish you all the best. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm the chair of the Kansas City section, and we're always looking to collaborate with sections, divisions, other groups. So if you want to collaborate, or if there's just ways we could help, feel free to let us know. But I think with that being said, we've got a couple minutes. If anyone has other comments or questions, you can put them in the chat. So, and I'll go back a slide just in case you need my contact information.